Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Rath, just watching your body language during the last question, do you have any comment on the previous question that was posed about the Amazon warehouse?
Well, I think that any given employer, and I'm not here to represent Amazon or any other specific interest, but any given employer that has experienced an above average injury or illness rate within their sector has an opportunity to understand why that's happening and to develop solutions and intervene and then test and evaluate those proposed solutions and refine them. But I would also add that when you look at a company that has been rapidly developing or has been introducing new facilities or new automation, that an increase in injuries or illnesses may not be happening in spite of all of that newness, but it may be happening specifically because of those disruptions, and that needs to be examined and refined, and that we have to understand that growth sometimes disrupts the ongoing progress that an employer can make in the field of safety and health.
And my understanding is that while the warehousing and storage sector has rapidly grown over the last decade, the total number of fatal injuries in warehouses has remained relatively the same over time. So does this data indicate that the fatality rate has been decreasing over time in the warehousing and distribution sector?
For the sector, generally, it does seem to indicate that. In the past decade, or about the past decade, that sector has doubled in its workforce population, while the fatalities have remained very low, about 30. That is an increase from 21. It's about a 33% increase. But as a rate, it is certainly would reflect a decline in fatality rate, even though the population of workers in that sector seems to have doubled.
And my colleagues have certainly mentioned that, has there been cherry picking of data from 2020 and 2021 in an attempt to show dramatic increases in workplace injury and illness rates? How are the data from these years potentially skewed and therefore less relevant when examining warehouse safety?
Thank you for your question. Your question was with respect to the years 2020 and 2021, and I would observe that certainly the COVID pandemic would have a disruptive effect in the management of injury and illness rates and fatalities, because OSHA specifically had asked that COVID cases, positive cases, be presumptively treated as work-related in the absence of any clear and convincing evidence that the case was not work-related or induced from societal exposures. So that would, for years to come, we will now look back at data from those years and have to accommodate for OSHA's request that it be over-inclusive.
And I can tell you, as a physician and as a former director of the Department of Public Health, and having done vaccine clinics at job sites throughout my district, and talking to all of our public health, a majority of the cases were acquired in non-workplace settings. So the fact that data is skewed in that direction does make it questionable going forward. Mr. Rath, in 2001, Congress repealed OSHA's ergonomics standard through a Congressional Review Act resolution of disapproval. Why did this standard receive such strong opposition from Congress and the regulated community?
Thank you for that question. I began my time with Keller and Heckman 20 years ago during the ergonomics rulemaking, and I can share that the proposal that OSHA had promulgated was that any single incident of musculoskeletal disorders would have required vast and expensive engineering controls to the work facility, even at the expense of rechanneling those resources where they could have achieved greater reductions, more meaningful reductions in other areas of workplace injuries and illnesses, slips, trips, falls, struck by injuries, et cetera. And that was outside of the scope of OSHA's authority, being an authority to promulgate rules where there are significant health concerns, not a single musculoskeletal disorder. And that was problematic to Congress at the time.
Thank you very much. I yield back my time.